Hello. Welcome to Mending Threads. This is your safe place and your stronghold for whole body wellness. This morning, or this afternoon, and this evening, we'll be talking about trauma as we have been for the past couple of months in a different way. One of the things that we want to know is we want you to know that experiencing a trauma can change the way a person even perceives the world. And we'll be talking about and hope that when you leave the show today, you'll have a deeper understanding about trauma related concepts. We want you to really understand how trauma affects behavior in different settings. We also will give you some tips to prevent being re traumatized. And then we're going to look at ways in which we can de escalate. But one of the main things is from a personal experience, we want to look at the vantage points of our speakers that we have today. So we have two. We have our co-host, Reverend Dr. Samuel Massey from Real Life Christian Church. And we also have with us Miss Ann Collins Lawrence. And so we're going to then get a chance to know them. So welcome, Pastor Massey.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being a co-host that you are, and bringing and knowing the topic so well rounded for whole body wellness. So, Pastor Massey, I know that you have some programs or a particular program that helps address in different ways trauma. Could you talk about one of your programs? I'm thinking about the substance abuse program. Could you talk about that just a little bit before we get started?
Well, we have initiated a program called Celebrate Recovery
Hmm.
at Real Life Christian Church that deals with hurts, hangups, and habits. And there's a lot of people in the community as well as church members that have issues that they're dealing with that need to be addressed that's never been addressed. And for that purpose, uh, God have led us to set up the Celebrate Recovery program in our church. And we have small group sessions divided up um, according to gender, and people get a chance to share their hurts, their hangups, and their habits,
Hmm.
and by that, address it in a Christian way,
Hmm.
using the word of God to address every issue that they're dealing with. And we go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that what you're doing is so befitting to our topic on trauma because many times misuse is associated with coping in terms of trauma experiences and in terms of trauma situations. Mhm. So I think that that's going to be helpful, so helpful to the community. We also have with us um, our guest speaker, who is Miss, and if
And
I must mistake her name,
it's Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie Collins Lawrence,
Yes.
who is a well-known community advocate and activist. And it was really wonderful to see that together because because that means that a person really knows and understands what has to happen for community healing. So welcome to us this morning. And I just want to see, how did you decide how did you get into this advocacy and activist role? Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I don't think I decided, to be very honest. It is a legacy that has been bestowed upon me, and I wish I could tell you how many generations back, but I can pinpoint it to my great grandparents
Mhm.
fleeing Mississippi and knowing that they had to do so. So,
Mhm.
advocacy and activism has been in my blood for quite a few generations today.
And I see that your background is that you also went to University of Houston and Texas Southern, that you graduated in public administration. from Texas Southern University, and human health and human services at University of Houston. And I was trying to see how have you used this background, and how has it called you forth within the community? Mhm.
Yes. So I have a background. I'm a United States veteran, and so when you think about service to other people, that's always been a part of my life. As a middle schooler, I started tutoring, and so I think always been a care for people and a care for others my whole entire life, and it just continues to build one on top of the other. So all the things that I have done throughout the different aspects of my life, where people seem very hard to, how do you put these items together? They don't quite flow. At the center of them all are serving other people. So whether that is joining a sorority and leading in different aspects of multiculturalism, nationalities, sexual orientation, being a pillar for those that are oppressed in different countries while going through my public administration master's degree, traveling to Brazil and understanding other countries, to doing all the work that I did in Texas, fighting with all faith communities there for better humanitarian needs and respect for just human people. So at the core of everything, it is all about helping people, helping those to uplift the voices that have been silenced for so long.
Mm-hmm. What would you how would you describe, as you're moving forward in your endeavors, the most challenging experience that gave you the momentum to continue?
Um, Living in Texas was a challenge. I currently live in Canada now, just recently moved. And I'm not from the South, though my family lineages, both sides are from Mississippi. And the way of thinking and the movement is very different from the Midwest. The activism and the need to fight, it was not there like I was used to in Kansas and Missouri. My grandmother was the chair of the National Democratic Convention in Kansas. And so, with that, her need for the civic duty and to empower other people, being in Houston, there wasn't a spotlight on that. People weren't really worried or cared about those issues as strongly as so many of the populations that I lived with and grew up with in Wichita, Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't there. So for me, it was, how can I bring that to where I was at? And
Mm-hmm.
so um, I would say one of the issues will always be being a Black woman and being pregnant and having to go through the possibility of dying in childbirth, and doctors not listening and medical professionals not listening, and you being the only person that can advocate for yourself. And so that just keeps a fire lit underneath me as we continue to hear about women dying during pregnancy and in childbirth and after, in that fourth trimester.
Mm-hmm. So when I mean, that's a traumatic situation in itself. You know, the fear, the thought about that. The other thing, as you were sharing about being a veteran, and I know that we have an active program here with veterans and helping them move forward and integrate their experiences for healing. So I wanted to know if you could share how you experienced being a veteran, and how that might even be related to any traumatic experiences that you've had to overcome or deal with.
Yes, being a female veteran is a traumatic experience within itself. Being a Black female veteran just puts another intersectionality, another pressure, another layer onto that, because when people look at me, they don't see veteran. They don't expect veteran. They don't thank me for my service. They thank my husband, and my husband then has to turn around and say, I'm not the veteran, my wife is. So to constantly have to get all these paper cuts, right? They say death by 1,000 paper cuts is very traumatic. The fact that I always have to explain myself if I go into the VA that I'm there for an appointment, and there, the initial is always, uh, "Who are you here to see? We're not accepting visitors." It's always traumatic. There's always a barrier that's placed in front of you, and you always feel like you're having to fight. And that's after the service. In the service, because you have on a uniform, it's a little different, but the expectations are that you are to fulfill your duties. And I will say that on some hand, I felt supported, but it always depends on who is your superior. And if you have, because people hurt people. And if you have superiors that are racist, that are sexist, that are misogynistic, they will treat you as such, and you don't have much recourse in the military. You kind of get what you're given, and unless there are some regulations that have been broken, you don't have much of a choice, and it's basically suck it up, buttercup, and hope that get someone else. And so you learn to be tough. You learn the rules, you learn the laws, and you use them to your advantage. And so, though those things have been and can be traumatic, they also are life lessons to kind of navigate through the rest of how life is going to treat you.
I know Pastor Massey and I had an intervention this morning where we haven't really brought that to the forefront. But you know how the person who has been in the service may it may impact their relationships, and how they view even added on trauma within the relationships. How seeing women in a different way or seeing men in a different manner. And I was wondering if you could speak to that in any kind of way of what your observations might have been while you were in service. Because I'm seeing also, my second thought was looking, you're bringing a statement that we see so much of now in the news because people are stepping up to talk about how they have been maimed or harmed or ignored um, in the service.
Yes, so it's interesting because we are all supposed to be seen as I was in the Air Force, so airmen, right? There's no distinction between man and woman. You get to choose your job, and whoever is by your side is your colleague, and we're fighting for everyone that's in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And so, though you may hear jokes here and there between the different branches, we all went the same through the same experience, and it is difficult, more difficult, I think, on the outside than it is on the inside in some respects. But I will tell you, for women that have gone through MST, military sexual trauma,
Mm-hmm.
um, there are no words, because there's the the superiority for patriarchy and male dominance in any industry and in any area causes trauma. Period. And there is no different in the military, and it's actually probably worse to even try to come forward to talk about the things that happen to women in the military. I it I didn't have any experience of MST while I was there, but I had plenty of friends that did. And there are certain instances that I can say that there is PTSD without having to go through what someone else might say is traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
but that then links things back to the military. And that is why you may see or hear or know about some people that are veterans but have absolutely nothing to do with the military community, do not want to associate with being a veteran because the experience that they had were so traumatic or so disheartening and so bad after they were either voluntold or volunteered to join, that their just contribution to the United States military is just totally disregarded. And so, I speak a lot about when people, come up and say thank you for your service once they know that you are a veteran. And it's very odd for me to hear that, because when I got out in 2005, which is fairly new, but getting older, no one was thanking me for my service then. And so people tend to think that the things that they're doing now today is the way it's always been. The companies weren't going out of their way to talk about how they support the military when I was in the military. The NFL had, I think, just started doing these games supporting military things. So these things are all very fairly new. And to be honest with you, it's a huge thing of propaganda, because what we know in being veterans or being in the military, that it was never been glamorized. We've never been heroes, and the government still doesn't take good care of their veterans. And so the trauma just continues to cycle, where normal civilians or regular civilians think that, veterans are well taken care of. And the honest truth is that we're not. And so that's just more trauma placed on people that have volunteered their time.
Well, I understand that the veterans are now becoming more faith based or faith oriented in their practices, and really beginning to look at the care for the veterans a little bit more. But I am hearing much of what you're saying is that it's such a process even to request and receive help, even
Yes.
though it's coming faster now. Um,
Yes.
as, as
I will say, after the election of President Obama, there was a lot of changes that happened to help things move faster. Since my whole entire tenure was, while I was serving, was under President George W. Uh, there was it was a it's a fight to get the benefits in which you should receive. I am totally unaware of why we have to fight for the benefits in which we already fought for, when they're so freely given to people that are making these laws in Congress, right? And
Mhm.
so, though it is, some would say it's a little easier to do it now, it's still a fight. You still have to get all types of documentation. You still have to fight for benefits that you should be receiving, just for the actual visits or doctor's visits or things that happen to you in the military. I started that process before I got out, and I'm still continuing that now. And I've been out of the service for 16 years.
Wow.
So it's they want people to believe that things are better for veterans, and the honest truth, and most veterans will tell you that things are not any better. They are, depending on which state you live in, they are continuing to worsen.
Hmm. Mm. Oh, that is so sad to hear. Okay, I know that they have started in Texas care service, like a mental health program, which is really good in terms of whole body wellness. But you know what I find is we're having a hard time getting the veterans to participate what is free. And so now I was going to ask you, because that's a part of the trauma experience in itself. But what ideas, what do you think we how we could approach that? Because we offer every Saturday all this financial, all the mental health services, all the nutritional services free of charge, virtually, and then they can know where to go, and we legal everything. So what could we do to help connect? Since you're an activist, see,
Mhm.
I'm pulling on your advocate and activist mind here to see how we can be what we need to do to address this need that you're surfacing here. How?
So so I will say that first and foremost, it is always good. for you or for any organization that wants to reach out to veterans is to have veterans in that organization. We speak a different language. We have experiences that most cannot even understand. And one of those things is uh, the not wanting to connect because uh, either I can't tell you, I don't feel like retelling you,
I
no one's
don't
going to
feel like.
believe me.
Mhm.
Those barriers are real, and when you have someone that at least was in the service, reaching out to other people that were in the service, it makes a broader connection that I would say it's very easy for me to talk to a black female therapist than a white female therapist or a white male therapist, right? I feel comfortable. I feel like someone has had some of my experiences
Yes, yes.
and meeting them where they are. A lot of veterans have different ways of maneuvering through and through society, and sometimes it's not feasible for them to be around other people. Uh,
Mhm.
to be honest, just some of the things that happen, they just cannot be in large groups or in small groups or to be out of whatever they have felt that is safe for them. So
Mhm.
meeting them where they're at, I have a really good friend that does a lot of outreach for veterans on the mental health side at the VA, and they make house calls because what we do know
Mhm.
is that depending on where they are
Mhm.
in their everyday life and are in that cycle, their home is their fortress. And so you might have to go to them and have a sit down and have the meeting and the mental health services and everything brought to their home versus
Mhm.
expecting them to come to you. Uh,
Yes.
if the so the virtual things have helped tremendously with the ability for certain people to connect, but it's also further isolated others that really needed that interpersonal ability to connect in human ways that we can't do so much right now.
And I even find that in the virtual world, that if I invite them by telephone to the meeting, to the trainings, where they could see the training, but they do not, it's something about being visible. It's something about, and so when I invite them, then I get they are able to participate more um, without a lot of stress or without that connection that brings on the stress. You see.
Yes, and I think that's a lot of things too. There's some of us know our triggers and others don't. And so when you might sign up and say, "Hey, I'm going to go do something," and then figure out as you're leading up to going to go do that thing, there's a lot of anxiety that goes with that. And then you start going down whatever path that your
Mm-hmm.
neurotransmitters have made, and you either are able to do it or you're able not, or you can't do it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that there are a lot of people that are wanting and willing to connect, but we just have to find different ways. And what I do know is being able to have a person that's a veteran reach
Mm-hmm.
out to them in all forms, whether that is on telephone, whether that is
That's right.
intercepting them at the VA, right? Whether that is coming and making a house call, um, and that is something that I know for sure works. It has worked for me. I have used that with different people that trust me, right? That have seen me before, that have and being able to kind of get them to start coming out
Yes.
of that trauma
Yes.
space.
I'm gonna follow up on this and talk with you on another level. But one of the things that I find is that sometimes we don't know that talk therapy doesn't really work, and that initially, and that we have to do some other things like music and
Mhm.
movement, and just don't even talk about the subject at all right now. Deal
Yes,
with something else. But dealing with the subject, but dealing with something else. Period.
yes,
So,
yes.
and so building up the resistance, to things, and So I found that that is really helpful. But look, I wanted to talk because we look at whole body wellness. We look at how our beliefs build, how it affects what we do. We try to build people's beliefs. And I wanted to get into the church trauma,
Mm.
since we're talking about faith and the beliefs and whatever. Can you tell me a little bit about the topic of church trauma from your point of view, and so that we can look at that with you?
Yes. So um, I chose this. My husband's a pastor, and we he talks about this a lot.
Mhm.
And though I may not have personally had a lot of church trauma, and I really believe it's only by the grace of our Creator that I have not. Um, I growing up in church, I grew up going to church on Saturday and Sunday because I grew up Seven Day Adventist and Missionary Baptist Church. And so, or you could say I grew up from the true the true Sabbath, where sundown on Fridays I did nothing all the way through Monday morning. So Saturday cartoons I didn't really grow up with. The things that a lot of kids had, I didn't have, but I did have family and I had friends. And what what I um, what I remember is my grandparents, right? I remember my grandmothers, but I also remember a lot of the things that were said versus the things that were done in church.
Mhm.
And it just made me realize that maybe some of the things that they were saying versus some of the things they were doing, that I wasn't destined to go to hell, right? Because there was so much hypocrisy in the church.
Mhm.
And so for me, I just figured, if I'm doing the things that Jesus did, if I'm trying and I'm failing, but I'm still getting up and trying, that I will be covered. And so I that's just how I've always lived my life. I have sinned, I have fallen short. I can tell you my flaws. I have no problem with airing out my own sins. But I've always had issues when the church, and I'll just say the church as a whole, right, in the
Mhm.
traditions, uh, doesn't see anything that they've done wrong, doesn't see the things that they have continued to perpetuate, uh, whether that is the racism, whether that is patriarchy, misogynistic, homophobia, any of the things, right? And for me, uh, I always land on when Jesus was pressed time and time and time again about what people should be doing, how they should be acting. He said the greatest two commandments are to love God first and foremost with all thy heart, and to love your neighbor. So basically, he said for us to love, and love is an action. He didn't
Mhm.
tell us who was getting in, who wasn't getting in, where they were going, none of that, right? And so for
Mhm.
me, love thy neighbor means everybody. It means I have to remember this myself, right? Love the people that are driving me crazy on the highway. Love the people that are doing very erratic things in the grocery store. All of these people are my neighbor. And so when I see or hear people that when we don't understand them, or they have taken a different route, or they live in a different
Mhm.
country, speak a different language, and have been doing the things that they know are right to do, if we can't love them, I don't understand how we can say that we're Christians. And so a lot of church hurt, from all the perspectives that I've seen, and even with my husband growing up Southern Baptist, and his grandfather is a Southern Baptist preacher, from former Marine, so I really get him.
Mhm.
There is, and now he's a part of the United Church of Christ, which is an open and affirming church. It is a justice minded church. They are sisters with the disciples of Christ, and so with Dr. William, Reverend Barber, that is bringing back the Poor People's Campaign, picking up where
Mhm.
MLK and so many people had left off. That is the justice that I see that Jesus was doing. Jesus was a political person that was killed by the state. The state of Rome killed him because he was going against all the things that they were trying to require the people to do. The taxation, the tiers, or the a caste of people, and how you could not move forward into living life. And he chose a lot of misfits. He chose a lot of people,
Mhm.
and God continues to choose people that are misfits and don't belong, right? And uh,
Yes.
I,
Mhm.
I think that is where some of the traditions and the strongholds that are on the church just continue to hurt people. Um, uh, I don't know how to fix it. Uh, the only thing I know is to just accept people for who they are. It's probably not our are part of life to understand why they are the way that they are, and just love them, because we're all human. We all have human experiences, and I don't want to be the reason why someone feels less than, because I have been made to feel less than a lot in my life. So I don't want to carry or perpetuate that harm going forward. And so the church that I like to be a part of, and the church that I always uphold, are going to be churches that aren't discriminatory to other people, no matter who the person is. We just love people because we don't know what God has in store for them.
Yes. Well, I think that I know Pastor Massey has spoken about how we can interpret a scripture, and that sometimes we interpret scriptures without knowing the source of the scripture or the connection of the scripture. And that sometimes in the church, when you spoke about not knowing how to heal, I think you've already set forth the beginning of the healing. And then when doing that, I think that just as Jesus did, we will have to take the punishment of stepping out, because this is sort of like where we are. We're bringing pastors together to say, speak a message that we're losing our young people. We're losing people because the message is so separate and diverse itself. And so we need to help interpret the message as how it relates to the behaviors, what we do, and how we should do, could do, and explore it in terms of how that relates to love. How do you love the person you with? How do you find your love? What is love? So it's not about selecting a person. It is about learning how to love a person. You might not be ready for the person in your congregation or in your home or whatever, but it is so when you how to get ready to do that. And so this is an important thing. And I know that Pastor Mass is a member of that. I know when while we're doing this, we're having a difficult time because people are not ready to hear that we need to take a step in all of these things. Our marriages are falling apart fast as they join. They're falling. Children are losing. They're separating, and they're not getting chance to even know their own mothers and fathers in a manner because of our not knowing how to love and how to heal. So it's so many things. Violence is really at our forefront, whether driving on the highway you're on or or
Very true.
wherever. And I think so. And I think that young people reflect. They're leaving the church in mass numbers. Okay, they're reflecting the need. Okay, and they're a little hesitant, like the veterans. They're hesitant to listen and come forth because there's so many different messages, and they say you're reading the same book. So
Right, right.
this is
That
what
that
I'm
part.
hearing. They're like, how can this person say, come on now? So we probably have to look at that you can interpret it different ways, but help people learn how to study, how to love. How do you study it to discern what is being asked of you? You see. And so I know we have to talk a little bit. I like that you said that you're looking, that you have an open frame for bringing in other ways of looking at it and holding through to the central. So I want to hear what Reverend Massey has to say about Pastor Massey has to say about what we're throwing out here like this.
Uh, you know, uh, I'm glad that she said what she said because, I grew up and I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't really get serious about being a believer until I was 30 years old. I got baptized at about the age of 12, went to church about 5 times after that. And because I didn't like the church that I was going to, I didn't go back.
Right.
Since there was nobody in the house that was really going to church, nobody made me go. So I didn't have to go. But I had decided to go on my own because I was a kid. I was like from 9 years old to about 12. I was during the time that I was a newspaper carrier.
Mhm.
I delivered newspapers all over the neighborhood. I knew all the adults and I knew their children too. But I used to see people going to church every Sunday while I was delivering my papers. And I always felt shame
Mm.
because they were all dressed up and they were looking good going into the church. And I had rusty knees and ashy legs with short
Mm.
pants on, barefoot, delivering my newspapers. But I had a desire to be in that environment,
Mm.
but it was not in my family at the time. And so just one day I just decided to go. And I went and I was in Sunday school, and the Sunday school teacher uh, invited me to accept Jesus as my Savior. And I accepted. And I went home, I was happy, and I told my mom, uh, this church, I gave my life to the Lord, and they wanted me to be baptized in that church. And so she said, "Oh no, you can't do that. You can't go to that church. You got to go to our church." And I'm like, "Our church? Where's our church? I ain't never been to our church." Because people have their ideas about church.
That's right.
They just
Mhm,
call it church. And so when I went there, I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be at the church that I was going to in the beginning. And because I couldn't go to that church, I just decided I'm not going back to church, period.
Mm.
If I can't go where I want to go, then I'm not going anywhere. And so I went through college and, I saw a lot of different people that were in church, and some people looked strange to me. They wore certain clothes and they had a certain look. It was strange, but they had a certain look and I
mhm,
could see it. In other words, they looked like church people.
Mm.
And it
mhm,
was strange, but they looked like church people. And I didn't want to be a part of that. I didn't want to be a part of that look. But I guess I got that look now.
So, Pastor Massey, I would like to know. I would like to know what if can you recall what made you really have a preference for the first church for one church as
Well,
opposed to the other?
what gave me a preference is that I decided to live my life with a strong desire to be back in church, but go it on and live my life with no word. Cause see, I didn't have no word in me. I had a belief in me, but I had no word in me. I had no words from the Bible. I was not reading the Bible. I was not meditating on the word. I wasn't doing any of that.
Mhm,
And I was calling myself getting ready to get married. And so
Mm.
I was doing like everybody else. did. Okay, we're gonna get married, so let's just hook up. Let's just go get an apartment. Let's just go get furniture and stuff and get ready. But since we're gonna get married anyway, let's just go on ahead and get an apartment. If that makes sense to you. And so that's what I decided to do. And in that process of time, I'm ready to get married. I got a engagement ring, and she bought a wedding dress, and we sent out invitations because that was going to be a wedding. and
Mm-hmm.
and then when I got with this person, I realized this is not the person I want to be with,
Mm.
for the rest of my life. And so what I decided to do, I said, I got to get away from this person, but I don't know how to do it. But I know that people always want money. They want money. So I said, I believe that it was from the Lord. Pay for her wedding dress, give her the wedding dress, give her the ring, give her the furniture in the apartment, and leave. And so that's what I did. And all the person did was cried, but they didn't want to kill me. And the
Right.
and the family didn't hate me for it.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I at that point I was 30 years old. And at that point I said, it's time for me to get serious about the Lord. And I went back to that church that I didn't like, and I said, I'm going to recommit my life to the Lord. And I got rebaptized and became, an active member in that church. But I began to study the Word, because see, a lot of people, they get in church, but they don't study. Because
Mm-hmm.
see, I wanted to find out for myself what God was telling me, not
Mm-hmm.
what He was telling everybody else, but what He needs to be telling me. Why do I want to be here?
Mm-hmm.
And once I started studying for myself, I began to see that everything that the pastor and other people were saying was not exactly what the word was saying. And
Mm-hmm.
so I started thinking practical. I started thinking word application, applying the word to your life
Mm-hmm.
and doing the word, not just talking it.
Yes.
And so
Mm-hmm.
basically, um, because I was going to a lot of churches and I used to disagree with a lot of pastors, but I said, this is their house.
Right.
This is not my house. So
Mm-hmm.
I can't come in here and tell them what to do, but I can pray for them. And then at the same time, when I get away from here, I'm not going to let them come and tell me what to do in my
Mm-hmm.
house.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so basically, when Sister Amarie started talking about love, and that's exactly what it is, but it's not mushy mushy.
Right.
Sometimes
Yes.
Right.
people
Mhm.
think that love is mushy mushy, but it is an action word.
Mm-hmm.
But the actions side of it is the word of God. Treat people like the word say treat them. Talk to
Mm-hmm.
them like the word say talk to them. Stop
Mm-hmm.
trying to fix people. You see, a lot of times we want to fix people,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't fix people. What you do is you get people saved and let the word fix them. Because see,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm telling a prostitute, a wino, anybody that have a hurt habit, and tell them you need to read the Bible. No, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Read the Bible. You need to get saved. And the mistake that people make is that they don't tell people about Jesus and tell them how to get saved. They start telling them about their sin and telling them to
Mm-hmm.
stop sinning.
Mm-hmm.
Can't nobody stop sinning. You can't stop sinning.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great if you could just
Mm-hmm.
stop sinning.
Yes,
You
yes.
wouldn't need
Man.
Jesus at all if you could just stop. But you find out that you can't stop. Even after you get saved, you still sin. You still mess up. You still do some stuff. And so basically, when you love, you tell people the truth about Jesus, not telling them the truth about their sin. They
Right.
don't need to hear that part. They need to get saved and then let Jesus change them. And you know, I was introduced to a person that uh, she was what do you call it? Trans. What do you call?
Transgender.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she was. Uh, wait a minute. I don't know if she was a man and and changed to a woman, or a woman and changed to a man, but the person got saved in that condition, and then nobody told her, okay, you need to do this. You need to go back to
Yeah.
where you were. You know, you need to do this. She, God spoke to her personally and said to her, because this was her testimony, when you see me, who do you think you're going to be? Who are you going to be when you
Mm-hmm.
see me? Because you're going to see me. Are you going to be who I made you to be? Or are you going to be who you made yourself to be?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you know, that made me so upset because I realized who he made me to be. And
Mm-hmm.
she decided on her own to go back to who God made her to be.
Mm-hmm.
She got married, you know, had children, and but she did this all on her own as her relationship with Jesus grew. And seeing what happened with us, we try to make people change for whatever it is that we disagree with in terms of their lifestyle, or habit, or sin, or whatever it is. We try to make them change. And people have to grow in grace and in the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And
Mm-hmm.
when we allow God to do it, and we not try to make people do it, God can do it. You just get them saved. And I believe that that's the mistake that the church make, is that they try to make people change rather than get people saved and allow the love of God to do the rest. Because when you grow, trust me, I mean, I've grown from where I used to be. You know, I used to think that if a person wasn't a Baptist, they wasn't saved. Now you see how
Mm-hmm.
crazy that is, but that's the way I used to think.
That's tradition.
I used to say, if you don't come to my church, then you ain't saved. You know, if you don't get baptized this way, you ain't saved. You know, and that was taught. That was tradition. That's what tradition taught me. But
Mm-hmm.
that caused people to get out of the church. You know, wearing a suit with a tie. You know, people call that church clothes. There's no such thing as church clothes, but people call it church clothes. Because I had
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
person that I had witnessed to and said, well, I can't go to church because I ain't got no church clothes. I said, brother,
Mm-hmm.
what are you talking about? I don't have a,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a tie. I said, look, you got some jeans, you got a t-shirt. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wear my jeans and I'm going to wear my t-shirt and we're going to go to church together. Just like
Mm-hmm.
this. And sure enough, that's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to church, Brother Massey, why are you dressed like that? And look at my friend.
Right.
You know, we have so many different things that people do in church that's not has nothing to do with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Until when people come to church, even if they haven't been there in a long time, when they come through the door, it seems like everybody turns and look at them.
That's right.
And they think that the people are looking at them because they haven't been there in a long time.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not really true, but
Mhm.
that's what people think. So a lot of experiences that we have in church causes people not to want to go back because
Mhm.
those traumatic experiences that they've had down through the years.
Mhm.
And and basically with me as a pastor is I try to as much as possible tell people the truth in terms of
Mhm.
practical application. I'm trying
Mhm.
to encourage
Mhm.
them to survive. I mean,
Mhm.
I want a job.
Mhm.
This is how you get it. This
Mm-hmm.
is the spiritual, if we want to put it, this is the spiritual
Mhm.
work that God can lead you to the job that
Yes.
He wants you to get. It's just like getting married. You
Mhm.
know, the Bible says, "He that findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and have favor of the Lord." Well, in my second go round, I wrote a list, and I wrote 39 things down that I wanted to see in my wife, and I prayed about that, and God answered my prayer. So I could share that with people. And a lot of times people feel condemned, if things don't work out
Mm-hmm.
like they think it ought to work out.
Mhm.
And the
Or they've
Bible
been
says,
conditioned to believe that it's supposed to work out that way because their
Mhm.
tradition in which they grew up in was told that if it doesn't, then there's something wrong with you.
yes.
Mhm. 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 So I
You
think what you're saying is what it is. I think to show love, looking at church trauma, then probably to show love is really to offer the person wisdom, share your experience, and welcome them, and as opposed to evaluating them. Welcome them and share your vulnerability as a way of them knowing some more information about the word,
yeah.
and not that they have to do a certain thing. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And teaching people how to walk in the character of Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
because I was in prison ministry and I used to go into the prisons and minister to all the inmates. I used to have jail ministry. I used to go and minister to all the people in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just very practical with the inmates because I wasn't afraid of them. I wasn't scared they were going to kill me. And I told them, I said, look, I said, when y'all get out of here, people going to stare at you. People going to look at you. I said, so don't expect for them not to think that you're not going to do something wrong. I said, but make it a good watch. I said, they're going to watch you, but make it a
Mm-hmm.
good watch. I said, I'm not going to tell you a lie and tell you ain't nobody going to think that you the one did it, because, oh, that person was in jail. That person's probably the one that did it. I said, be the best employee that they have, and I used to hire inmates um, that was getting out of prison. I used to take a chance. I was to give them a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "But look, man, don't embarrass me."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Talk to them.
Yeah, because I said I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna hire you, but then don't make the people come down on me because I did. Because I'm gonna give you. And I gave a
Mm-hmm.
lot of former inmates a second chance because I was in a position where I could hire people. And I did, and I gave people, and I told them
Mm-hmm.
I would give them a second chance. Just, get out, stop doing what you're doing, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to help you. And so Jesus helped people, why are you, I used to go into the drug houses and where people were selling drugs. And I used to talk to the drug
Mm-hmm.
addicts. I used to go on the street corners and talk to the winos and
Yes.
people selling drugs. I used to give them tracts and They used to be running from me. They said, "Here he come, y'all. He gonna tell y'all about the Lord." Because I thought I was really crazy at that time. I thought all Christians did that. I thought all Christians went and knocked on doors. I thought all
Mhm.
Christians, were taking people to church. You know, I I really did. I thought
Mhm.
all Christians did this, but I began to find out that most Christians don't.
Hmm.
So we have to be real, and we have to know that this is the reason why things are the way they are. And we're the ones that have to step out
Mhm.
and be that voice, be that advocate
Mhm.
to be a real Christian, so to speak.
I think maybe you're saying something. I think maybe Sister Lawrence said here a few minutes ago, what could we do? I think maybe in the church, we might not only need to welcome people, accept them as they are, and show them love, but I think maybe helping them to stand up. Some people use assertive, but stand up for what you think and what you believe and what is the right thing to do. Sometimes we go along to be a member in the church, which is one of the traumas. We go along with that standard thing, but we go against what Jesus wants, to be a member in the church or to be a leader in the church or to be seen or noticed in the church. And
Mm.
so, therefore, we have lost what the young people are telling me is that the worst crooks are in the church.
Oh yeah.
So, oh yes, or just say, oh yeah, yes, that's what they're telling me. They said, Dr. Lewis, you're trying to get us to listen to the word in the church, but the biggest crooks are in the church. And I try to share with them that that might be a place to go to study the word so that you could show them how it could be, how you would like for it to be, because that is where people go when they are hurt, when they're ready to hear the word. That's where they go to their hurt. And so sometimes if we teach young people through what we're saying in our sermons and our shows and what it is in this church and begin to reward or value them or acknowledge when they do stand up in difference, um, for the word and saying the thing to heal, that's the next thing that we could do. We could look at how to do that.
Yeah, I think a lot as a young person myself, that the truth that as ministers, and as my husband as a minister, doesn't mean that that's the truth that I know,
That's right.
right? And
Yeah.
the as Pastor Massey was saying, the word that he was hearing versus the word that he was reading were two different things.
Yes.
And I don't think that people hear that enough. I know for a fact that young people don't hear that enough, because what
Mhm.
we're told and what we're expected is to believe and to follow the shepherd of the church. And we are, and if we don't believe what they're saying about the word, we can't challenge that. And if we do, then we'll be black sheeps and outcast and put out of the church. And it's one thing to because there are some things that I think that me and Pastor Massey will always fundamentally disagree upon, right? And I don't think that that's a problem,
Right.
because I can still love him. He still loves me.
Mhm.
He will still support me, and I will still support him. And disagreements and discernment from what the Creator has given you is just that. It's what He has given you and what He has pledged for you to do. Um, People standing up for their truths is one of the reasons why there is church hurt, because there are some people that have been able to find new ways of living, and they feel like that God has placed that upon themselves to live out their lives in such a manner that goes against what society heteronormativity says that's supposed to be there. But
Mhm.
when you look back in history and you look back at the Bible, these things have always been with us. There is nothing new underneath the sun. And so I cannot believe that the way that evangelical Christianity has come about today to make it seem like we're dealing with a new thing and that we need to continue to treat people that at the end of the day are all God's people. If He created me, He created you, He created all of us, that we would treat people as such. And so I like to take, when I am reading the Bible and reading stories and reading scripture, to look at it at the historical context that it was written in. Because when
Mhm.
you take it out of context, for me, then you get to start interpreting things in a way that in which they may not have been designed for us to interpret it, right?
Right.
Uh, Pastor Lewis, the fact that you are a woman pastor, right, is
No,
a,
no, no,
no, you're
no.
not.
I just grew up with all these pastors. Everybody's a pastor in my family. No, I'm not a pastor. No, please.
Oh, you don't put that on you. Okay, I'm sorry.
Not that, I'd say it in a different way. I
Yeah.
work with pastors. I feel them. I understand them because as early as I could remember, I've grown up with pastors and worked with them in my family and the community. And I truly understand the struggle that they have. At the same time, what's needed in the community. No, my background is in mental health, psychology, and counseling, and I have studied, okay, the Bible. I've gone, that, and so I do faith health,
Okay.
so I can bring that, and I really look at people. I have interventions to work with people who have been hurt and healed, and want to be healed, and so many of them are pastors that I work with. I have pastors as patients, and also I work with pastors as leaders, and
Well,
so I
I think that that's a calling. Now that may not be that is your church, and
yes,
and to be honest, I think we all have that, right? I think
we all have that. That's
God
right.
gives you
Hmm.
not
They're
necessarily
telling me
that you
my
have
time. They're telling us our time is up.
okay.
But listen, I want to thank you for being with us today, and I know that I'm hoping that this is not going to be your last time. We must bring you back to look at some of the other forms of trauma in a more detail, because we know that there's something called complex trauma, crossover trauma, environmental trauma, and many different things that we could look at. But I want to look at it differently to come out of it with a faith health perspective for healing. Okay, then. So I do thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Pastor Massey, my co host, I want to thank you again today for being here. And I want to say to our audience, renew beliefs, rebuild faith, and reconnect families and communities. For it is not the circumstances we meet, it is the manner in which we respond that determines health, happiness, and success. So we will see you next week, same time, same place. But I want you to go to our website, sign up, and everybody on here promote these two programs, mental health coaching, and learn what to do to heal people in your community. We have been afforded a grant partnership with Light University to offer this at an affordable rate of just $150 international certification. So, Miss Anne Marie, Miss Anne Marie, go in and bring some people. Go to wrc-houston.com for your community because it's international, a certification. And then we also have a relationship in healing coming on November the 13th. Sign up. Know what you need to do to heal the relationships in our communities. We must take a stand. We have pastors and therapists in the area and the general public coming together to look at bringing a healing community. You're asked to find two males and two females and yourself to come and help develop a healthy relationship community. And so we'll see you for that on November the 13th. Otherwise, I'll see you same place, same time, same station. Have a good week now.
All right.